Hello everyone. Today I have the pleasure to interview our 23rd guest for 2024, Taleah Pletzer, who is also a believer of our Lord Jesus Christ. Taleah is a dedicated trauma-informed coach, specializing in empowering women to navigate through life challenges with resilience and grace. As a survivor of both physical and sexual abuse throughout her childhood, Taleah knows firsthand true long-term effects of trauma that can have on a person if the root issues are not addressed. So, as a Christian and a mother of five daughters, she brings a compassionate and understanding approach to her work. Living on a ranch, Taleah understands the importance of nurturing growth, healing, both in the field and in the hearts of those she supports. With her expertise and empathy, Taleah guides women on their journey towards complete healing and freedom, therefore empowering them to live abundantly. Taleah will share a little bit about her background, how she became a Christian, and then she will go on discussing the topic for today, which is healing is a journey, you're worth the trip. So we welcome Taleah to Be an Encourager podcast. And my first question to you is, how did you become a Christian? When did you feel that you needed a need to change and why?
Thank you so much for having me, Clarabelle. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I became a Christian through when I was 16. I would go to different churches because my family was atheist. But my dad would let me go to church at times. And so through a youth group that I went to, the Lord just really impressed upon my heart, and I just felt the call. So when I was 16, I accepted him as my savior. However, that being said, when my dad found out, and the church, he blamed it on the church, was instilling false beliefs. And they were, that church is this and that church is teaching you this. And so he told me, nope, you can't go anymore. So unfortunately, as Matthew 13, 5, and 6 says, the farmer came, scattered the seed, and it fell along soil, birds ate it, then it fell upon the rocks. Well, that was kind of me then. So then when I became an adult and I got married, and through my divorce, actually, a friend invited me to church, and I thought, I can't go to church. What are you talking about? I am a mess. My life's a wreck. And she's like, don't you know I'm getting divorced? And she said, that's why you need to go to church with me. He doesn't want you to be perfect. God wants you now in your mess. And I was like, what? So it was really interesting. So I went to church with her. I thought, okay, I am messing up my life. My life's a wreck. I can't do this on my own anymore. Maybe there's something to this again. And so I went back, and when I was 21, I rededicated my life to Christ, and my life's never been the same.
That's a very interesting story. And God has a way of calling us, right? And we think like we're not ready, and we think like, right? But
Yeah.
He knows what He's doing in our lives. So the
Amen.
podcast for today, the title is Healing is a Journey You Are Worth the Trip. And I want to start by sharing an excerpt from a book titled Healed Without Scars by David G. Evans, found in page 27, which goes like this. We are the walking wounded, externally fulfilling responsibility while bleeding internally from unresolved issues. And this kind of existence is just a shadow of the life that God desires for you. You may feel as though at times, an opportunity have been lost forever, as you've been emotional, paralyzed by the hurt and the disappointment. Yet God says in His word that He's the redeemer of time. And this is just like an encouraging word just to start us off, that God is our redeemer. And with that being said, can you share a part of your story?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. So when I was about a year old or so, my dad was in the military, and we lived in Okinawa, Japan. And my mom had suffered from seizures way back in the 70s. And so she really didn't get to be a kid, an adult. She didn't really get much of a childhood or life. And so she got married right away, had me, just was not really ready to be a mom from what I've been told. And so when I was, again, about a year old, she left me in my crib, and she just left. And I think it was hours before my aunt found me alone. in my crib. And so my dad had to scramble because he had like this baby, and
Mm-hmm.
so he had to figure out what to do. He had 2 more years or so of service in Japan, and he couldn't really have a baby,
Mm-hmm.
So he asked my grandparents to take care of me. So they did. And then he came back, got out of the military, and about a year after that, he met my stepmom, Lori, which would become my mom. She'd become my mom. She raised me. And so our lives were very turbulent. There was a lot of drugs and alcohol and drinking, mental abuse, physical abuse. Now, in the midst of that, we did have some good times. I mean, my mom, Lori, really tried to make our lives as best as she could. But with the drugs and alcohol, our lives were really chaotic, as you can imagine. And with all the trauma that comes along with drugs, hiding in the corners as they're fighting, the fights would get very explosive. They would throw things at each other. We would go hide in our rooms. So it was like
Mm-hmm.
really hard in some ways. And so we also didn't really get to have friends and company come over because we lived in the shadows. My dad didn't want people knowing he did drugs or sold them. He was very careful, though, I have to admit. He only sold to people that like knew him or knew of him or were friends with his, but there were constantly people in and out, in and out, in and out. And so that was, pretty difficult as a kid.
So, what helped you the most during that journey of your healing from what you went through? What helped you the most?
Well, it was the Lord, actually. He really, as the abuse was going on, even when I didn't know he was there. And the worst times, like you mentioned, in my bio, my father abused me sexually from early childhood through my formative years, through late teens, way early adulthood. And so, the good thing and the amazing thing is God provided I would go out of my body when the sexual abuse was happening, and that's called disassociation for anyone who doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I would float up kind of, and I'd go in the air. Basically I could see my body down below, but I wasn't there. And I would go to this most beautiful place, and I would just see the grass, and there was an oak tree, and that's my spot with Jesus now, even today.
Mm-hmm.
Flowers, I mean, the most beautiful flowers you could ever imagine. And I was this kid, I would just start running and playing, and along came this man, and he was dressed in white, and I didn't know him. Like, he knew me, but I had no idea who he was. But I knew I wasn't afraid of him. I felt safe. He would
Mm-hmm.
meet me there, and we would just play and run and jump and, play merry-go-round, ring around the rosies. And he just loved me and hugged me and told me it was going to be okay, and that he was with me. And that is pretty much like what really helped me during those really hard times. And then the Lord throughout my life would just send me people to help me and encourage me, like the people at that church when I was 16, neighbor down the road. She was amazing. I remember their life was normal. Like, they didn't have TV. They
Mm-hmm.
sang together. They had piano. And I just thought, wow, this is what normal looks like. Like, I had no idea what
Mm-hmm.
normal was. So God just sent teachers. He sent just different people in my life throughout my whole entire life. Further on in my adulthood, he sent women to really encourage me and equip me and help me. And, women prayed with me. They helped me to forgive my dad and all the people that had hurt me. And it was just, he did it little by little by little. It's just amazing. He just knows where you're at. He knows exactly what you need, and he knows when you need it, and he knows what you can take and what you're ready for. So it was pretty awesome.
It's a remarkable story, and from what you're sharing, you went through quite a lot of trauma, and uh, that whole story that you share about God, it's amazing. How God guides us and how God protects us, even though we're going through those type of things. God has a way of
Hmm.
bringing those angels to come and help us and motivate us and encourage us throughout that whole ordeal. God created us to be whole and not to stay trapped in our wounds. What helped you break the cycle of abuse and trauma in your life?
Hmm. Thanks. That's another great question. Actually, it's the support system. Like I said before, I just had a lot of awesome support. And personally, for me, when I was raising my kids and my husband and I were raising our kids, I was so desperate to get healing because I knew I felt unworthy. I felt worthless. I didn't have any type of, how do I say it? I was very much self inflicted. I would say things about myself. I didn't have integrity, really. I just didn't know what I was doing. Um, Sorry, let me back that up. Not integrity. I'm looking for the right word. I really, I was depressed. I just went through all the cycles that everybody goes through, a lot of
Mhm.
people. And I just read self-help book, any book I could get my hand on. I would read it. I would pray the word. I would dive into the word, speak the word of anxiety, against anxiety, depression, lack, all of that stuff. And then I would just find people, women in my life,
Mhm.
in churches, in my homeschool groups. And I would watch them. And if their life looked, oh, that looks normal. Oh, they're treating their kids really great. That's what I want. So I would run after them. I would talk to them. I would ask them, how do you do this? How do you do that? Well, what do you do with this? Well, I'm thinking this way. I don't feel like I'm a good mom. And they would just come alongside me again. God put them in my life at the right
Mhm.
time. They would encourage me so greatly. And then my husband and I also did it very differently than we were raised. Um, especially myself, I wasn't raised in a Christian home, as I stated before.
Mhm.
And so we really did it differently. We loved our children. We gave them structure, support, safety. We gave them stability. I never had any of that. And
Mhm.
so my goal was to just give them that stability, and my own walking. And I didn't get my healing fully until I was almost 50 years old. And that's why I'm so passionate
Mhm.
about helping women get free in their 20s and 30s. Like, don't wait till you're, as old as I am. But, even if you do, it's totally okay. God knows He is the redeemer of time, like you just said. He can redeem all anytime.
Awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. I want to highlight how you mentioned that even though you didn't have the experience, like as much experience in parenting, you search and seek for those people that were mentors, role model,
Hmm.
and God also sent people your way. So we want to make sure that the listeners also know that God also has a way to bring in those individuals to teach us those skills that we lack because of the trauma that we have experienced. So,
Hmm.
as believers, we understand that we can be restored to God's image, as nothing is impossible for God to do. But we must need and want our healing for God to
Hmm.
restore us fully to that whole person that He originally intended for us
Hmm.
to be. And you mentioned a little bit of that before. What has helped you in the past in your healing journey, and how did it help?
That's another great question. Well, again, the Lord would just place certain people in my life whenever I was going through doubt, self-doubt, and insecurity. I didn't feel like I was worthy of help. And that's an important question. You need to know that. I want to tell women now, whoever's listening, you are worthy. You are worthy. You are valued. God loves you so, so much. And you are worth it. Um, and that's why on my business card, it's healing is a journey and you're worth the trip. You are worth it. You have to know your value. And so for me, finding my value really helped me
Mhm.
know. And also the support system. I can't emphasize that enough. It is so important to have a good, healthy support system. Um, in a lot of my classes I'm taking now, they are, and business coaches and business people I'm in with now, networking with, they all have a resounding same uh, thought process and
Yeah,
encouragement for
mindset.
people in business mindset. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's the right word. Of to hang around those people and be with those people where you want to be,
Yes.
where the mindset, the thought process is where you want to be. That's where you need to go hang around those people. Don't hang around the people that are always complaining or just like, oh, I can't do it, or I have
Or
that poor
negative.
mindset, the negative mindset.
Hmm.
Jesus created us for so much more, and I
Yes.
want the listeners to know you are worth so much more than you think you are, and you can do so much more than you think
Mhm.
you can. With Christ, all things are possible.
Awesome words of encouragement. So, what type of intervention do you feel that others can benefit from or what kind of support or services can help a person heal from a trauma or like abuse like you went through?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Simply, just put it simply, just start. Start somewhere. If you cannot afford therapy, or your budget doesn't fit that, then there are tons of support groups. We live in the age of technology now. So get on Facebook, get on Instagram, get on all the social medias that you want. There are so many different kinds of groups, and there's one for everyone. So if nothing else, find a group, a support group. There's also wonderful support groups at many of the churches in town, and community has them also. There's mental health awareness weeks. There's, like in my town, there's something like all the time. They have downtown July Art Festival, and there's a mental health booth, and there's an encouragement booth for women. And, there's all just so many different kinds of help out there. And I would recommend that they also they need to ask themselves the question, like, what am I needing? What do I need? What kind of help do I need? Am I anxious? Do I have depression issues? Have I had a lot of trauma in my life that I never really dealt with? Once they have an idea of the kind of help they're looking for or they think they need, then they can go on to the next step, is just making calls, asking people, email people, ask your friends, your colleagues, people you work with, people hey, do you know anybody that works with this kind of issue? Grief counselor or an anxiety counselor, whatever it is. And then there's so many different models also. If traditional therapy is not for them, they can find other resources. Sometimes with traditional therapy, it works for some people and it doesn't work for others, and that's okay. That's why there's trauma coaches now. That's why there's business coaches, there's life coaches, there's, all these coaches. It's awesome. And I would just like to point out there's many different forms of getting help. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what I did. And it really helped me part way. Like it took the behavior part. It works on your thought process, how you're thinking, what your mind is. How are you thinking, like, I suck today, so I'm going to eat a gallon of ice cream. I just blew up at my spouse, so I'm just going to go wreck the car. Like, is that your thought process? Like, everyone's against me. And so CBT helps that. And there's also emotional focus therapy. Now, among some of my colleagues and friends, when I said I was doing that, they were like, "You're going on your emotions? Wait, we're not supposed to do that." I'm like, no, wait a minute. So emotional focus therapy brings Jesus into the scene with a person and helps them in whatever scene is going on. So if they had a stressful day, if they had a fight with their kids, their spouse, if they're stressed out about their finances, it invites Jesus to come right into that scene with them. And it deals with the emotions. We are created mind, body, soul, and spirit, all three. So they all have to cooperate and work together. If we just try to fix the mental part in our mind, which is what some people do, it's not going to work. You are not going to get the healing. I can absolutely guarantee you, you have to incorporate all three parts. We are mind, we are body, we are soul, we are spirit. So another one is the dialectical behavioral therapy. That is for certain people that don't really like to talk. So it's a little opposite of CBT. There's also EMDR therapy, where again, it's sort of like the emotionally focused therapy, but a little bit different. They use a tactometer like this that focuses your eyes movement, and then they go into your, like, a trauma or a hard time that you had. So that is another one. I also do a model called the Emmanuel approach, which that kind of incorporates some different models together. It uses brain science and biblical principles together, and brain science together. And the person that you're working with, the client, uses a positive memory, because our brains were made for connection. God created us for connection. So we are wired that way. It helps our right brain and left brain work together. And then once I create a good positive memory, it's called a safety net. Because our brains work best when we're telling a story and our endorphins are going, and it just really helps our brain work better. And then we ask Jesus to come into the positive memory with us. We invite him in. And then my job is to help them connect with Jesus and stay connected. So that's also another option. And that is the model that helped me tremendously.
That's great that you mentioned all the types of therapies that can help a person that has gone through trauma, abuse. And it's all about that matching. Like there was, like you said, if one doesn't work, maybe try something else, because you're going to find one that's going to match you and that's going to be very helpful in your healing journey. Not all the therapies are made for like everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, especially the CBT and the DBT are very good with clients that individuals have gone through major traumatic and sexual
Mm-hmm.
abuse. So I highly encourage that. So how can you encourage a woman who may be feeling worthless, alone, and don't know how to start to act towards their healing, to find and seek appropriate services that they may need to help them in their healing journey? And I believe you share a little bit, but if you want to expand on that,
Mm-hmm.
that would be great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I would love to. Um, First of all, I want to encourage anyone listening, especially women who have suffered abuse, as I have, or any trauma really, that you are worth it. You are worthy of healing. You are worthy to put into yourself, to invest in yourself. And investing in yourself and your own mental health is not selfish. I was told that for a long time. But and I just put everybody else's needs before my own. And I want to encourage you, you cannot do that. If you do that, you are going to burn out fast. When your cup is empty, if you have a cup and it's empty, it doesn't have anything in it, well, you can't fill others. You can't be a mom. You can't be a good wife, a good spouse, a good, business worker, whatever you're doing in your life. You won't have the ability to do that and the capability and
Mhm.
the capacity. So I just want to encourage that you're valued. Jesus loves you, and you're so worth it. So invest in yourself. And then to the second part of your question, with all the technology, again today, just start somewhere. Reach out. There's so many, like I said, support groups online. Like my adult kids that have kids now, they do these mom groups, and they have been with the same mom group since they're babies, since they were pregnant. And at first I thought it was really weird, but now the technology and Zoom and like since COVID, especially, I'm like, wow, these are really awesome to do this. And it's just how our world connects now. So I would encourage them to start somewhere. Just take that first step, make a call, send an email. Don't let the discourager, which is Satan, distract you
Mhm.
or tell you you're not worth it. Don't make that call. Nobody's going to want to listen to you. That's lies. Those are absolutely lies from the pit of hell. Do not let Satan steal your freedom and your healing. Um,
Great, great words of encouragement. And the next question: what type of strategy do you do so women who are struggling with seeking services and support can help them in their healing journey? And I believe you also touched on a little bit on this, but if you want to expand it, if not, I'll go to the next question.
okay, so yes, that'd be great. Also, how you view yourself is really what I help with, also the thought processes, as I already touched on. And oftentimes trauma causes us to be stuck and oftentimes stay stuck, as in my case.
Mhm.
In order to get unstuck, we need to create new neural pathways. So that is where, like CBT and what I do with the Emmanuel approach comes in, because we get to meet with Jesus directly.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's what I do. Other things also are practicing mindfulness through prayer and meditation,
Mhm.
practicing your breathing. We are taught, many of us now, especially in the US culture,
Mhm.
are taught to ignore our bodies. Just ignore that feeling in your chest. It'll go away. No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Mhm.
That's why I love the movies. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I'm sure the audience is, though. Inside Out, one, and now there's two
Yes.
where she's a teenager. So
Mm-hmm.
that is so true of
Mm-hmm.
us. That's exactly what I did. In the very first one, the joy girl was like, oh, and she had to fix it. And that was me. And that's so
Mm-hmm.
many of us. We
Yes.
want to fix it. So I offer strategies like that. Check into your heart. It's okay to be sad. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to feel. Do not ignore your body. So I work with women on that, slowly building that capacity so that they can
Mm-hmm.
listen to their body. What is their body telling them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then redirecting our thoughts and actions is how I also help women. We need to change our thought process. We need to change the
Yes.
behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
The like, I'm not worthy. The paradigm wheel that goes in our head that tells us those things and those thoughts. You're not worth it. Who do you think you are? Like, you're never going to get that job. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, no. And also, like, our circle of control. What can we control? We
Mm-hmm.
cannot control, that somebody jumps out in front of us and,
Mm-hmm.
almost sideswipes us. We can control our response to it. So that's part of how I help women also, and strategies that they can do. And also, lastly, focusing on your breathing, learning how to breathe. As trauma survivors, and most people that are distressed and don't know how to deal with it, or what to do, and that was my case,
Mm-hmm.
we breathe very shallowly. We don't, very shallow, pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we need to learn to take a deep breath in 4 or 5 times, let it out really slow while focusing on a good thought or putting on a, river or ocean. I have a soaking prayer that I love. I absolutely love it. And by focusing and slowing down our minds, slowing down our bodies, and just taking that time for ourselves. Self care, also. I help women take self care. It is so important. I never did it ever. And you could tell I didn't do it because I was like a crazy mom and a crazy person. I was always just so stressed out, and because I never took time for me. So, like, go for a walk. Take time to go for a walk. Go out and enjoy nature. Really look what's out there. Don't just fly through and walk and not notice anything. Listen to the birds. Notice those things around you.
Mm-hmm.
And also just taking time, like, do your nails. Like, I have my nails done now. I do my nails now. I go and I'll do a little pedicure on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go spend time. I'll go to lunch or just coffee with someone now. I take
Mm-hmm.
time for me now. And
Yes.
I can't tell you what a difference it makes. So that's
Mm-hmm.
my strategies and how I can help women.
So you mentioned three things that I want to just, mention again. That is changing the whole mindset, paying attention to your emotions, and self-care. Three things that are so
Hmm.
important in our healing
Hmm.
journey. And I'm glad that you mentioned them. So as believer, we understand that there's also like a spiritual implications of sexual trauma.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, the whole the concept of disassociation and any other type of abuse can cause those soul wounds in the person. Many individuals
Hmm.
suffer from many physical ailments such as autoimmune, mental health, personality disorders because of the wounded spirit. And some have placed band-aids in their wounds, but and not allowing it to heal properly. As believers and life coach, we understand that it is not until they examine that those core issues of trauma that
Hmm.
spiritual deliverance can happen, and that they can finally see how their abuse has affected them not only physically, mentally, but spiritually as well. And there is evidence based that untreated trauma allows demonic oppression on the person as well. Do you agree with
Mm.
this statement? And can you share how traumas affect the body and can become trapped in the body and also cause many physical ailments mentioned that are caused because of repressed trauma? Can you
Okay.
explain how a person can obtain deliverance from the spiritual side effects of trauma? And as a role model and Christian mentor, can you share a word of encouragement for the listeners who may be struggling with not knowing how to get healed? I know it was quite a lot, but I want to make sure
Yes,
that.
thank you. I'd love to. I do agree with that statement, and I have personally lived that exact statement. Only I didn't know it. And so we are, as I mentioned before, and you mentioned, We are mind, body, soul, and spirit. God created us,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things together. And so it definitely does affect your mind, your soul, your body, and your spirit. All trauma affects all of them. And so when all of our parts are not integrated, they're all over the place, or you have been trained to cut those parts off, like I had, not feel, don't feel, just keep going. I was so trained that way. And I know a lot of other people and clients I work with, they have been taught, nope, don't feel that. No, don't, just keep going. No, you got a little bit. No, someone died. Nope, just keep on going. Get up, keep going. And so that, no, 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 no. We need to start feeling. And God designed all of our parts to work together. And to simply keep going, put a band-aid on it. And I think you stated that earlier. Like we tend in America, especially, to put a band-aid on trauma. And so we get stuck. It gets stuck in our bodies. It gets stuck in our mind, our spirit. It affects our spiritual. We sometimes can't hear the Holy Spirit. We can't hear Jesus and what he's doing because we're so in ourselves and so stressed out that it just gets cut off. We don't have the connection. It's supposed to be this way. We kind of lose it sometimes because of the trauma that we're holding. Like myself, like we just aren't aware that it's going on. So if I can share a quick story, in my own experience, I held on to the trauma for 43 years. And I would do, like I mentioned before, little bit. God kept sending people, but I just never really got complete and total freedom and healing until we moved where we live now in the country. And I all of a sudden had seizure. And it was not a normal. I thought I was having a stroke. My husband thought I was having a stroke. I was rushed to the ER. Come to find out, it was in my frontal lobe. So that's where all your emotions are. That's where your thought processes are. And so they knew it wasn't in the back of my brain. So they knew it wasn't epilepsy. And so their solution was just to simply medicate me. Give me anxiety pills. It's just anxiety. You're just stressed about moving. And I'm thinking, no, something's wrong. My husband and I knew there was something very wrong. So he was so amazing. He fought for me. He helped me. I would just have seizures all winter. So instead of shivering, when somebody gets cold and they shiver, I would have a seizure. And that is what happens when our body holds on to trauma, is eventually it's going to come out. And as you mentioned before, it will come out in many different ways. The medical society and professionals are linking more and more autoimmune disorders are huge now. Are hugely related to trauma now. Now I will preface it with this. It is not all autoimmune diseases are caused by trauma, but they are finding that a lot of them are because of that issue where your body seriously really holds on to all the trauma that you've had. And it also, they are finding, the medical professionals are finding that gut health has so much to do with holding on to trauma. Again, myself included, I had stomach issues all the time when I was growing up. And I was accused of being a hypochondriac. I got teased. Oh yeah, that's just Taleah. She's a hypochondriac all the time. And I felt horrible and I didn't know what to do, but it was because of the trauma. I did a lot in my own brain to try to protect myself. So it comes from that too. A lot of times people, if you're getting abused, you hunker down. You like, oh, I don't feel good. That's what I did to stop my dad from touching me. Oh, I don't feel good. Nope, I don't feel good. And so my body would go, oh, my brain told my body, I don't feel good. It connected. Oh, I don't feel good. So guess what? I would not feel good. I could not digest my food. I had illnesses all the time. I never felt good. And that is what it was from. I need to find my place real quick. So this is where counseling or trauma coaching can truly help people. And some people go to therapy, they don't see the results because they're only addressing the mind, as I talked about before, the mind part. When we begin addressing all three parts, and that's especially what I do, is I address all three parts with Jesus. He comes in the scene slowly. I go so slow, and the person needs to feel safe. But Jesus brings those parts in, and those parts of us, and we, just like in the movie, In and Out, we all have parts of us. And there's protector parts that have had to protect us. I had a ton of them. This part that didn't feel worthy, I had a part that had to have an answer. It was called the answer man. I had a part over here. And slowly Jesus comes together and he heals all those parts, but it takes time. It's
Yes.
not a magic pill.
Yes, it's a journey. It's an ongoing
Mhm.
journey towards your healing. It just doesn't happen overnight, like you mentioned. And I'm glad
Mhm.
that you use that analogy of the movie because self mechanisms that we develop, to either hide our emotions because we were either thought you cannot express your emotion, but it's healthy to
Mhm.
express your emotion. The only problem is the way the person can express it. Like if they do something bad, then they're not
Mhm.
expressing it in a healthy way. But communicating them, you have to say, "Hey, look, I'm very upset. I feel angry at your behavior. What you're doing is not right," or I can, I can accept you treating me in this manner.